Hey everybody, and welcome to Cloud Lunch and Learn. I am your host, Lisa Clark, and today we are joined by Dwayne Natwick for the first in a series of 6 sessions on So You Want to Be an Azure Solutions Architect Expert. Over to you, Dwayne.
Thank you, Lisa, and welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us today to start out this series of So You Want to Be an Azure Solution Architect Expert. Many of you may have seen on the social media posts, we're running 6 sessions, today being the first, and the schedule for the remainder of the sessions are on here. What we're going to do today is we're going to just kind of introduce you to the exams that are used for the Azure Solution Architect Expert certification. And then as we go through these sessions, we're going to focus on particular areas of the objectives in what we can call bite-sized pieces. I think that's an applicable term for a Cloud Lunch and Learn session. We're going to take bites out of each one of the objectives and hit on some key points around there. So throughout these sessions, I'm going to give everybody some additional somewhat homework on and resources that you can go out to continue to learn towards this certification, as well as I'll be running accompanying blog articles with each of these sessions as well. So let's get started. So here we're going to talk about the first steps you need to take to gain the valuable certification. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dwayne Natwick. I'm actually a training architect for Opsagility. I'm an author. I author courseware, provide training. I also have done product management, and I have over 30 years of experience. I have multiple certifications, including the Azure Solution Expert certification. And I am also a Microsoft certified trainer and a regional lead for certifications. What we're going to talk about today is we're going to just give an introduction to building a certification roadmap and exam preparation, provide some initial learning resources that you can use to help you and guide you towards your certification training. And then we'll go through each of the key objective areas for the 2 exams that make up the Solution Architect Expert certification. So many of you are here today because you do want to become certified. And the key thing around becoming certified is asking yourself some key questions. What is your current role that you're playing in the cloud? Where do you want your role to go? And what does my role look like the next year and the next 5 years? And do I want to change my role? Do I have goals and aspirations to go somewhere else within cloud technologies? And many of you may be here today because you've already asked yourself these questions and said, hey, I want to become a solution architect expert in Azure, and that's what we're here to do. But these are some key things in when you're trying to determine how you're going to go through your certification path. This slide gives you some good starter resources around learning and beginning your certification journey. Microsoft Learn is a great free resource and provides learning paths available. I have the links on here, and we'll share the slides out after this session as well on the Cloud Lunch and Learn site, and allow you to get access to the links on these slides. But Microsoft Learn has done a lot of updates over the past 6 to 8 months around their training and aligning them to the Azure role-based exams. And they have actually 2 set up for the Azure Solution Architect Expert objective exams. Right now, they're embedded in the AZ300 and AZ301 exams, and we're going to talk about how that's changing in a moment. Also, Microsoft Docs is a great place to continue to read about the objectives and learn about the objectives. The Microsoft has some hands-on labs that you can utilize. There's a lot of on-demand courseware out there from many organizations, my organization being one of them. Practice exams, Microsoft does have certified practice exams around that get you prepared for the types of questions that might be asked on the exams. And then there's many, many blog sites out there from community members to help bring things together and provide you with quick links to a lot of those documents and a lot of those objectives. And I'm going to talk a little bit more as we go through this around the self-assessment tools that Chris Peachman's Build 5.9's site has provided to kind of give you an idea of where you stand as you go into these exams as well. So what are the objectives and key areas for becoming an Azure Solution Architect Expert? So the objectives were actually adjusted earlier this year, and they are in the process, Microsoft's in the process right now of changing these exams to those new objectives. Right now, if you were to take the exam, you're going to look at the 300 or the 301, but those are going to be retired in September or end of September, October 1st, essentially, and be replaced by the AZ 303 and 304 exams. So you do have to take 2 exams to get your Azure Architect Expert certification. And it's the combination of the 300 and the 303 or with the 301 or 304. If you've already taken and passed, say, the 300, and then the 301 retires, if you take the 304, you will get your certification, and in the reverse. So any combination of 300 or 303 with 301, 304 will get you the exam. You can't take the 301 and the 304 and get your certification, just to be clear on that. The 303 and the 304, I don't think you can actually take. I don't know if they're out of beta yet, but they, like I said, they were in beta, or they're about to come into beta. They'll be in beta June 29th. Sorry, I was getting confused with the AZ 103 exam, but these go into beta on or around the end of the month. So you could take those exams, or you can take the previous exams up until September 30th. Key thing around when you take a beta exam, I don't know if anybody's taken a beta exam before. When you take a beta exam, you do not get your exam results right away. So you don't know whether you've passed the exam until it comes out of beta. And then about usually a week or 2 later, you'll find out whether you passed or not. So my recommendation is, if you are planning on taking an exam for this certification before September 30th, I would take the current exams, the 300 or the 301, because those will give you back your immediate results and get you certified. The 303 and the 304, if you take those exams, you're not going to find out whether you passed or failed those exams till September 30th. So that's just some key little pieces of Microsoft information that are very helpful, because a lot of people, want that instant gratification that you passed the exam. So make sure you're doing that. And then the links here for the key objective areas. One of the nice things that Microsoft's done is, if you go to these links, it will show the objectives of 300 with the changes to it for the 303. It's really not a whole lot of changes, and we'll go through the objectives for the 303 and the 304. The key areas have not changed really. They've made some adjustments in maybe taking some non-Azure, like third-party areas out, and put in some newer Azure specific services in. Made some adjustments to the flow and the headings of those objectives, but they aren't really dramatic in terms of what they cover. They still cover generally the same areas, the same pieces. They've just done a lot of reformatting and how those objective areas are titled and things like that. But you can go to these excuse me. You can go to these links and you can see how those have changed and how those have adjusted. So that you don't get yourself too concerned about what those areas are. And as we go through the series, we're going to talk more about. We're going to talk about more of those objective areas in specific sessions. So the first piece of the Azure Solution Architect exam is the exam for developing Azure Compute Solutions. So with this particular piece, actually I've got the rough, this is an old slide, sorry. Here's your exam. So the first exam is the Microsoft Azure Architect Technologies exam. And if any of you on this call are a Azure Administrator Associate and have taken that exam or prepared for that exam, this exam is very closely aligned with that Azure Admin Associate exam, that 103/104 exam. They are, I would say, 80%, 85% of the admin exam is part of the objective areas of this exam. Very closely aligned. So if you've studied and taken the 103 exam or the current 104 exam, you could probably jump right into the 300/303. I've trained some people on the 104 exam. They've passed that exam, and within a week or two later, they've taken and passed the 300 exam. I did the same thing when I first took these exams. I got my Azure Admin Associate, went right into the architect exams, and got my architect certification very quickly after that. All within a 4 to 6 week time frame, I had both of those certifications, the Admin Associate and the Architect Expert exam. Here's how these objective areas are structured. You have the deploy and configure an infrastructure at the highest weighted area, and Microsoft does a good job of weighting these areas for you so you can understand the focus to where you want to put your time in. When you think about these exams and you think about most of the exams have, say, 50 to 60 questions that you're going to answer in various formats. They're going to be a case study format, multiple choice format. There are some grouped questions where they're yes or no type questions, and potentially labs. Microsoft has put in, over the course of the last year, lab work within their exams where it launches a RDP session into a virtual machine. You do your work from that virtual machine in Azure based on the tasks that are performed. So it's very good to use a training engine or use, say, Microsoft Learn, and get yourself used to the types of tasks that they might ask you towards this exam as you go into it, so you're comfortable with that kind of training, that kind of lab engine as you go into the exam. But when you look at the percentages and you think about, say, a 50 question exam, 40 to 45% of that is on deploying and configuring infrastructure. So you figure about maybe, getting close to half of your exam questions may be around that particular piece of how you are being tested on that exam. Then the implementing workloads and security, 25 to 30% are big on that. Then you have 3 smaller pieces of this that you may be asked, 5 or so questions on around creating and deploying apps. So the app services within Microsoft Azure as well. Implementing an authentication and securing data, 5 to 10%. Now, this is an interesting objective when you think of authentication and securing data being 5 to 10%, but you have security up here at 25 to 30%. So there's kind of a blended percentage here when you think about it, because authentication and securing data is also part of the security piece as well. So, and then developing for the cloud and Azure storage again, part of securing data, those could blend into certain questions as well. So it's not really a one-to-one criteria there, but something to keep in account here is it's good on this, especially this exam, to pace yourself. This is a long exam. So, you have, most exams are weighted at around 240 minutes. So, about, usually 3 to 4 hours that they allot you time to take a Microsoft exam. If you've taken a Microsoft exam in the past, you're probably not going to spend that amount of time on most of them. This exam, you probably will. It took me, I think I had 20 minutes remaining when I took this exam, and I've talked to other people and they've had, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Make sure you're pacing yourself. You're not spending too much time on a specific question, and make sure you give yourself enough time, if you do have labs on that exam, to complete that lab work, because that's going to be a big piece for this exam, being that deploying and configuring infrastructure is a high priority objective as part of this exam. So you're most likely going to get a labs that are going to ask you to do that. So just want to make sure that you understand that. And like I said, when we go through the other sessions for this certification, I'm going to focus a lot on these heavy percentage objective areas as we talk through those objectives and those pieces on the cloud lunch and learn sessions. The second exam is actually around Azure Architect Design. So this is much more design focused, where this is deployment, configuration, and in a way, administration and security type focused. How you're designing things and how you're going to deploy and implement and create. This one is definitely more of an architect type focused exam. So understand, as you go in, depending on your job role, you do have to understand some administrative pieces of Azure to get this solution architect expert. If you're deal more in the architecting, design, and theoretical type consulting type work, you're going to have to spend a little more time working in Azure to understand what goes into the 300 and the 303 exam. This may be more in your wheelhouse in terms of your job role of, if you're titled and what you do on a day-to-day basis is that solution architect role. This may be more your speed and more something that you're comfortable with and feel much more ready to take on. But again, you need both of those exams to get that solution architect expert certification. They want you to be a well-rounded solution architect, because this is, like I said, an expert exam. So you need to be an expert in Azure for this particular role-based certification. And when you think about this exam and the objective areas here, you can see that the highest objective area within this is designing identity and security. So right there, that the identity and access management piece of things is going to be very important. But you do have 6 objective areas within this, and all of them are weighted fairly balanced when you think about it. So, determining workload requirements, understanding and sizing virtual machines or databases for what you need for your workloads are going to be very important in here. Designing a data platform solution, again, databases are a big piece here. Business continuity strategy, migration and integration, and designing that infrastructure strategy. Looking at all of those could all of those objective areas could really be covered within a particular case study within this exam. And something I haven't heard whether there are any labs specifically on this one. This exam, you could most likely go in understanding that it's going to be very case study focused, because being that it's all the objective areas are determining workloads or designing a particular solution, that you are going to be given case studies and having to answer questions based on what you're going to recommend in terms of design. Some key pieces around this this exam is databases, Azure Site Recovery, and Azure Migrate. I wanted to really focus in on these particular pieces because unlike any other Microsoft exam for Azure, these are very database, Site Recovery, and Azure Migrate focused. Probably the only ones that really talk, probably the only exam that really has coverage around Site Recovery and Migrate. So, and you're going to be given one of the things around this exam to understand is what steps you have to go through to prepare an environment for Azure Site Recovery, or preparing an environment to do an Azure Migrate assessment or migration. Those things are going to be very important in terms of the objective areas with this. And I'll try and I'll work into some of the next sessions around the Site Recovery and Azure Migrate. We'll talk a little bit about that probably in the next session for IaaS, because those tools are very IaaS focused within the Azure environment. We'll talk about databases quite a bit when we talk about the PaaS services that we're covering in our third session. So I'll hit on those and give you some key objective points to cover and to focus on a little bit as we go through. So your next steps, what do you want to do as you prepare and become that solution architect expert, and getting yourself prepared as you go through? I mentioned the self-assessment from Build 5.9s. Great to go in, and they're Excel spreadsheets that take each of the objective areas, and you can do a self-assessment of, okay, this objective area of designing an infrastructure strategy, I feel 80% confident that I know that area, or design identity and security. Okay, in that objective area, I'm this amount, and it'll hit the key points under each of these as well, so you can really hone in on and dial in on what is important in each of these, and how comfortable you feel in them as you begin to build your training path and determining how you're going to train. So a very good resource, and I'll point you to my site here in a minute, where I'm going to put a lot of those links into I'm going to do accompanying blog articles that will provide you with links to these areas as well, so that you can continue between sessions to get yourself comfortable with each of the pieces each of the parts that we are providing sessions on over the next month. Microsoft Learn, I brought that up before. If you have a Microsoft account that you use for your certifications, you have access to Microsoft Learn. It's a great free resource. Microsoft Docs, again, gives you step-by-step deployment understanding and services understanding around everything Azure. Is a great resource. Creating an Azure account and doing hands-on and getting yourself comfortable with the Azure Portal and the Azure environment is a great help to you, and that's an important piece to touch on here as well. Azure does use the portal quite a bit. A lot of you that may work in Azure probably use either the CLI or PowerShell for deploying resources within Azure, which is certainly, if you're comfortable with that and you're comfortable writing PowerShell code or doing CLI commands, you could certainly do that in terms of the lab type questions on the exam. But for the most part, 95% to probably 99% of the tasks that you may be given within the Azure environment is should be able to be accomplished by using the Azure portal. So if you're not the most comfortable with PowerShell or CLI commands, don't stress out too much about it. Understanding the structure of PowerShell or CLI is good to know as you get comfortable with the Azure. It's good to read into, like I said, Microsoft Docs does provide a lot of sample code for PowerShell as well as CLI, so that you can understand the commands, understand how they're structured, because that's generally what you're going to get on the exams in terms of questioning, is those types of questions where you need to fill in specific parameters or entities into code rather than writing an entire line of code. Feel free, reach out to me between sessions on social media, and I'll give you all my various handles here as we go through and finish this session. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out for guidance. There's a lot of different groups out there that provide assistance as well and can help to guide you through. And then, as I've said, that future sessions will provide, and I'm going to focus on specific objective areas and specific components of those objective areas. And we'll hit on that here on this slide and kind of give you the continued schedule here. As I stated, our next session will be July 6th, which is a Monday, and that will 2 weeks from today, and will be on infrastructure as a service. So we're going to hit on the key pieces of virtual machines for the most part, virtual networks, and those, how those pieces go in. Like I said, probably within this session, I'll cover some key components around Azure Site Recovery and Azure Migrate, and designing and utilizing those tools within the Azure portal, and how you go through doing that. On July 10th, which is actually the Friday of that same week, and we're going to shift these, I think, for the last 4 sessions to Friday sessions, will be on platform services. And within that, I'll hit the key pieces around platform services that you may see on the exam, such as, like I mentioned, the 301, 304 exam has a lot of database focuses. So I'll hit on the objective areas for the databases, app services, and Azure Functions, and some of the serverless components of Azure are important for the exams on these. And keep in mind, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be bringing together some of the objective areas of both exams, being that this series is around the full Azure, becoming an Azure expert. So these aren't to fully prepare you and have you ready to take the exams after July 31st. You're going to have to do some learning on your own, but I'm going to hopefully give you some key tidbits of information and pieces of information that can help you focus a good portion of your time as you get through these. On July 17th, security and identity. I showed you when we were going through the objectives of both of the exams have a very key security and identity piece to them. So if you are somebody that's very comfortable with identity and access management within role-based access within the Azure environment and Azure Active Directory, this may be second nature to you. But for many of you, you may be new to Azure Active Directory, and identity and access management and security are a very key piece and key component around all of the Azure exams. And foundationally, you're going to see that objective of security and identity and authentication and securing data around probably most objectives of most exams. So we're going to really hit on that on July 17th. On July 24th, we'll be talking about data and storage. So I'll have probably a little bit more in there on databases as well. I'll hit on databases because databases do seem to be a key objective that is brought in for this exam that you don't see as much on other exams. So we'll hit on that. So if you're, and we'll then also hit on the different storage options within Azure, which is very important when you're looking to administer, and there'll be some pieces around security in that as well. So it's a good follow-up to the security and identity session to kind of build on that with the data and storage as well. And then we'll finish up on the 31st of July discussing going through some labs. I'll go through a couple what if and potential lab type environments and tasks that you may find on the exam to help you prepare for what you might see in terms of a lab environment. We'll step through some of those tasks on a live demo, essentially, to help you think about what you might be seeing in terms of labs in the exam series for the Azure Solution Architect Expert. So that brings me to my last couple slides, and what I can do now in the time that we have left is be happy to open it up for any questions. And like Lisa said at the beginning of the session, scan the QR code or go to the link that she provided in the chat as well as on the slide and complete the survey. But at this point, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Dwayne. That was awesome. Do we have any questions for Dwayne about the up and coming sessions? What's going to be involved? Any questions around taking the exam or preparation? We have a big team on the call today.
If you don't want to speak up on the call, you feel free to post it in the chat as well.
Yeah, put it in the
chat. I have the chat on my phone, so I can see it.
Duncan said he's looking forward to the rest. Awesome.
Has anybody begun preparation for these exams to date, or are you just starting down your path and just wanted to find out what you might be in for if you're going to take these certifications? Got a few people that have been using Udemy for some preparation. Yep, Udemy is a good source. There's a couple really good courses on there. That's essentially when I started my preparation, I did find some courses on Udemy that were very helpful.
What other sources would you recommend? Richard's asking.
Oh, Richard, how are you doing? I've always pointed people to, and I know, Richard, you know Gregor, Azure Greg's blog site, and his GitHub is a great resource. I mentioned Microsoft Docs a couple times, and one of the great things that Gregor does is he goes through when a new exam is released and goes through each of the objective points and puts links to each of the Microsoft Docs for each of those objective points. And I actually provided everybody with a link to his GitHub on a blog article that I created over the weekend to accompany this session. So if you go to my site, captainhyperscaler.com, you can actually get a link right to Gregor's site. Other than that, Chris Peachman's Build 5.9s, I mentioned him as well. He does a great job as well of providing feedback on sites. I know, Richard, you do some blogging on various technologies that are helpful. The Azure community is great. So just start following people on the Azure community on social media. You can usually see me retweeting pieces of information from other people's tweets that I feel is helpful to anybody following me. So those are some great resources. People have mentioned Udemy. There are some great courses on Udemy from Skylines Academy and from Scott Duffy as well. Something that I'm going to work on with my company. My company has a on-demand training engine called Skill Me Up, and that is about the Skill Me Up platform is around 100%, probably 95% focused on Azure certifications and Azure training and Microsoft 365 training. So it's great to, they have a subscription service as well. And something that talked about with Hugo is for those of you attending these sessions, I'm going to work on getting some prizes and maybe some discounted codes to get some subscriptions to that on-demand engine as well as we go through these sessions.
On that note, guys, if you could provide us feedback on this session by going to the link that I shared in the chat, that would be awesome. Also, it will allow us to keep track of who attended this session and then who's attending all of the following sessions as well. So I'll put the link in the chat again, but if you could take a couple of minutes to give us feedback, it would be awesome.
Yep, a couple other points came through. Pluralsight, I did fail to mention Pluralsight. They are a great resource as well. Usually, if your company is a Microsoft partner, you can gain access to a lot of the Azure materials for free within Pluralsight. But they are also another subscription service. Linux Academy is another one that you can provide. That provide those on-demand trainings. Somebody else asked the question, do you need to prepare anything before the next session on IaaS? No, I'm not requiring any homework as you go through these sessions. If you understand what is a virtual machine and understand cloud technologies at the foundational level, that would be helpful. You'd probably gain the most out of it. But really not necessarily any homework as we go through things. Like I said, I'm going to be providing accompanying articles as we go through these sessions as well, with some links provided within them on my site. So feel free to hit my site or follow me on Twitter, because I'll send out, or LinkedIn, I'll send out links to those articles as we probably the weekend before I hit these particular sessions, or a couple days before these sessions hit, so that maybe you can do your assessment. Probably a nice thing for you to probably do going before we hit the strides on these other sessions is going out to Build 5.9s to the self-assessment tools. And I did provide a link to that in my blog article over the weekend around the intro. And like I said, it's a quick spreadsheet with all of the objective areas. You can get an idea how comfortable you are around each of the objectives as you go in. So it gives you a good foundation as you start to study of, I really have to focus on this because I'm below 50% on this area. Those are really helpful tools. That the Build 5.9 site has on them.
Cool. Does anyone have any more questions? Just a few things from me. You'll see the slides up again, the Microsoft slides. If you guys could scan the QR code, go to the link and register this session, you'll get Microsoft documents applicable to the session, and it provides really great feedback for the Cloud Lunch and Learn team. In the chat, I put a link to providing feedback, as well as links to sign up to the next 2 sessions, IaaS and PaaS. Anyone else got any more questions or want to share anything about their journey on this certification path? All good. Okay. Okay, guys, I'm going to do one more posting of all the links that you need from the session today. And then I'd just like to say a massive thank you to Dwayne for this first session. Can't wait for the rest of them. Really looking forward to it, and I hope you guys are as well. We've got a big group on today, and it would be awesome to see you guys all back. So look forward to seeing you guys on the 6th of July for the IaaS session.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing everybody on the rest of these sessions. Giving you some time back, it looks like today, but I think the remaining sessions will probably be filling up the hour.
Yeah, I can
a lot of information to cover in just an hour amount of time.
Okay, thanks everyone. Hope to see you back again on the 6th of July. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.